Hey guys, welcome back. Happy holidays and all that. As we are near the end of the year, I decided to take a hard look back at Tears of the Kingdom. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game. For as much grief as I give it over plot and various issues, I genuinely think it's a masterpiece. Still, it has its flaws, we all know that. Today, I've decided to share 7 things that would have elevated Tears of the Kingdom from a good Zelda game to the best game. Think of it as a Christmas wish list if you would. Now kick back and relax while I walk you through it. Here are my 7 fixes for Tears of the Kingdom. Number 1. Between Game Narrative. Let's start off with a pretty obvious one, the missing narrative between the games. We know that time has passed since the end of Breath of the Wild, and yet the game fails to actually tell us much of what has passed. There are some strong implications that it has been about 6 or so years. Madison is the strongest piece of evidence for that. The Hateno kids are all older as well, as are the kids over at Rito Village. At the same time, there are people who haven't aged at all, such as poor Shamey over at Woodland Stable, who is still looking to the sky hoping to see giant birds. It is clear that things have changed in this world, and yet, so much of it is never explained. It would be one thing if the information was actually in the game, and it was up to us players to go digging around for it. But sadly, that isn't the case. There are situations in this game that flat out don't make sense. Things that really should have an explanation. How did the bottomless bog get cleared out? Why is there a new lake off to the east of Hyrule Castle? Why have there been no efforts to renovate or fix the castle itself? And of course, the one that got under everybody's skin. What happened to all of the Sheik attack? More important than that though, is the question of what exactly had the people been doing during that time. Sure, most unique NPCs can be found somewhere with a passing reference to what they used to do in Breath of the Wild, but it really doesn't explain what has been going on in the kingdom itself. That isn't to say that there isn't some story presented to us. The Monster Control Crew are a clear explanation of how they are managing to keep the land under control in the post-Calamity era. Still, if it has been 6 or so years, then there is a burning question of what just happened, and the game simply doesn't tell us. We don't even know what Link has been up to, as NPCs that talk about Zelda's activity make it pretty clear that she is alone. They even mention that she goes to Lover's Pond in the afternoon when she's in the Laurelin area. I wonder who she could be looking for there. I think that this lack of information between the games really hurts the two. It would have really benefited from a prologue chapter, some form of media to help bridge the gap. Even something as simple as a few journals could have filled in the holes. Is that really so much to ask for? Breath of the Wild ended with so much hope for the future, and they had the engineers needed to fix the kingdom. The fix to this problem is simple. Give us a few NPCs or maybe some journals that outright explain what happened between the games. Some authority person, like an elder, who could give a rundown of what has happened between the games. It could be entirely optional, so it's not being shoved at the player. Would that really have been so bad? I think not. Moving along. Number 2. A functional library. As much as it would have been nice to know what happened between the two games, I would honestly settle for having much more information about what happened in the distant past of the two games themselves. Consider that Hyrule Castle has been standing for over 10,000 years. It's hard to believe that history isn't recorded in some way or another outside of an occasional stone tablet. Yes, I know, paper doesn't quite last that long. But hey, those treasure maps up in the sky seem to be doing just fine now, don't they? My point being, there should be a record of history somewhere in the kingdom, of events dating back to the founding of the kingdom. If not with the Hylians, then perhaps one of the longer-lived races such as the Gorons or the Zora. This brings me to Hyrule Castle's library. It's huge. They even went as far with the details to include an organization order for the books like we have in our real-life libraries. You have no idea how much I, and I'm pretty sure my fellow content creators, would enjoy reading the books in this place. But alas, Nintendo couldn't be bothered to write up the history. There are simply no books that we can pull out and read. One of the things I love in various games I've played is that when we enter a room and see a bunch of bookshelves, we are often given the option to read the few pages of the books when we click on them. As much as I would have loved to have read the books in the library, there is a thing in the game regarding the library that really upsets me. You might have noticed that Hyrule Castle is not in the best of shape, and that the library in particular has a really big hole in it. You might also notice that it rains here. So this room is exposed to the weather, has no safeguards in place, and all the books were just left here. There is no simple way of putting this other than saying it is a complete travesty. It especially hurts that Zelda herself shows an interest in education, going as far as building a school in Hateno. She herself has a love of discovering history. We can see it in her at the start of the game. So why has the castle library been left to rot? My fix to this is simple. In Hateno, behind the school, add a library. Make it with the same style of building as the Hudson Construction Company. And maybe, just maybe, let Link read snippets of the books related to the history of the kingdom. Speaking as a content creator, it would probably be my favorite place in the game. As for the castle library itself, it should be emptied out of all of its books. Maybe even having some roof repair done to show that they cared enough to save the place. To leave the castle as it was, specifically the library. That is something that is unforgivable in my eyes. Are you enjoying the video? If so, a like and subscribe would really help out around here. If you feel in the mood for some holiday cheer, maybe throw a super thanks my way to help out. And as always, a special thank you to my Patreon and channel supporters. Anyhow, enough of the YouTube stuff, let's get back to the list. Number 3. Linear Memories. Continuing on the theme of storytelling, one of the biggest issues with the game is the desire to keep everything completely open. While you are guided towards Impa on the way to Rito Village, and she directs you to the Forgotten Temple where you learn about the memories. The game does a poor job of actually presenting these memories in a proper order. Yes, I know. Their correct order is on the wall from left to right. I specifically went out of my way to view them in that order when I played the game the first time, realizing this. However, this doesn't stop many others from watching the memories out of order. For those simply roaming around, they might see a glowing geoglyph, and then after solving the puzzle, will view part of the story probably out of order. For example, the game directs you towards Rito Village early on, as I said, and on the way there you will probably go by Snowfield Stable in the Tabantha region. If you go north, perhaps searching for a certain golden horse as part of a quest, you will encounter the geoglyph from Memory 10, Birth of the Demon King. If you watch that one out of order, you will then learn that Ganondorf has killed the queen, stolen her stone, and then becomes the Demon King. As inappropriate as it is to present that part of the story to the player so early on, not too much farther away by Death Mountain, which is largely viewed as the second place the game nudges you towards, you will find a geoglyph from Memory 15, the one that features what happened to the Master Sword. This one basically ruins the entire mystery of the Light Dragon and where the sword is. Worse yet is that the memory has flashbacks of other memories in it, memories that the player may not have seen. I get that they wanted to keep the game open, but would it have been so bad to make it so, say, when you go to the Forgotten Temple with Impa and mess around with the map room, you could cause a new geoglyph to appear. Then after you go and investigate it and come back, the next one in the sequence would then appear. There is even a fast travel point to the Forgotten Temple. There could even be some good dialogue with Impa about the events of the memory before continuing. And it isn't like the game hasn't locked progression behind memories before. Memory 17, Tears of the Dragon, is locked behind having watched all the other geoglyph memories. As such, this is forced progression in the game. Isn't that contradictory to the open world experience Nintendo is trying to craft? Personally, I would have liked to have seen the Master Sword only be obtainable once the memories were all watched. But I digress. There is another problem with the memories being out of order, which is that the very first memory in your data log is one that you ought to have had from the start of the game. It shows Link and Zelda retrieving the Master Sword from the Lost Woods before going to investigate Hyrule Castle. This memory should have been unlocked from the start of the game. I dare say there should have even been an intro sequence that establishes what is going on, just how Link got down to the Forgotten Foundation, all while apparently bypassing the Zonai ruins. I mean, are you really going to tell me that Zelda isn't going to geek out the first time she sees them? Anyhow, a real easy fix is to simply make the memories appear on the map in order. Number 4. Master Sword Fusion. Let's move away from story complaints and talk about more technical ones. There has always been an issue with the Master Sword having durability. It is the legendary sword that seals the darkness. It really does seem that if there is going to be a weapon that has infinite durability, that the Master Sword should be it. Of course, the sword doesn't technically break when using it. It merely runs out of energy and needs to recharge. So thematically, it doesn't break, but still adheres to the durability mechanics. Okay, I don't like it, but I will accept that at the moment. The problem with this logic is that it breaks down when it comes to fusing in Tears of the Kingdom. As you are certainly aware, you can fuse materials to the Master Sword like any other weapon. And when the Master Sword runs out of energy, the fused material is then removed from the sword. I hate this, especially given that there are ways to repair other weapons in-game via Rock Octoroks, and ways to salvage materials from nearly broken weapons in Terry Town. This basically means that whatever you fuse to the Master Sword is going down the drain. It is horribly inefficient. And let's face it, the Master Sword's hidden attack power isn't even all that good. Its base attack is 30, and when it is around certain enemies, it will power up to 45, not 60 like in Breath of the Wild. My fix to this problem is simple. Make it so the fused material doesn't disappear when the sword goes on cooldown. If Nintendo is going to pretend that the sword going on cooldown isn't breaking the weapon, then the fused material should remain in place during that period. When the sword restores, that material should continue to be fused with it. And I will remind you that the Master Sword is the Master Sword. It is supposed to be the best sword. So even if this flies in the face of the durability mechanics, it is the one weapon that really should do this. If it did, it would make fusing that light dragon horn to it all the more spectacular, now wouldn't it? Number 5. House Fusing Mechanics. Let's do a couple of shorter ones before I hit you with my big finale. The house building mechanics really suck. I hate how they make you use Ultra Hand to do this. It's a process that makes you wonder how the Hudson Construction Company actually goes about building stuff. I would have much preferred to have been given a menu with a grid that I can put buildings onto. Or if I have to use Ultra Hand, place down a foundation that the pieces would then snap to. I have to admit though, even with the less than ideal mechanics of building your house, the creativity of the community has really stood out to me. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there showing off wonderful homes within the 15-room limit. These often involve things like turning rooms upside down or leaving open space. There really are a lot of lovely homes out there in spite of these terrible mechanics. As nice as those houses are, it really doesn't make the process of building them any less annoying. Not to mention that Grande-san will follow you around and constantly get in your way. My fix to this is as I already stated. Give us an interface to build the home with, or create a grid that the house pieces will snap to. While you're at it, if you're going to force us to use Ultra Hand, then up the object limit to 21 like any other monstrosity we can glue together. Basement rooms would be good too. And for the love of Hylia, keep Grante in his stall. Anyway, that would go a long ways towards making my dream home a reality, which would really just be a vault for all of my weapons. Number 6. More time skip options. This next one is more of a me issue than a game issue itself, but that is because I have spent tens, maybe even over 100 hours of collecting footage of this game. You're welcome for that, by the way. All of these beautiful shots, lining the camera up just right, and most importantly, waiting for the right moments to record. It all takes time. While I love that the Zonai devices basically let me set up a camera rig anywhere to record footage, there is one thing that I am very tired of waiting for: specific times of the day. Because of this, my single most used item in my inventory is firewood. This is because I am constantly shifting through the time, basically re-rolling the weather condition, until I can see that at sunset or sunrise it is going to be a clear sky. As you are certainly aware, you can shift between morning, noon, and night, which are 5 AM, 12 PM, and 9 PM. These times are not ideal. Well, noon is fine. I actually prefer most of my shots to be taken at noon. It's the other two times that are a problem. You see, sunrise in the game is at 3 or 4 AM based on the elevation, and those shots are absolutely gorgeous. In order to get them, I have to set the time to 9 p.m. at night. Struggle with resetting the weather until I get one that will be clear during the night. And then I can finally set up my camera rig and literally hang there the entire night. This takes 1 minute of real world time per in-game hour. It's basically the same song and dance when it comes to getting shots at sunset, because sunset is 7 to 8 p.m. based on the elevation and mountains on the horizon. Is this trouble worth the view? Absolutely. I have no regrets in that regards. My ideal fix to this is a simple one. Simply add more times of the day that we can select when at a campfire. The weather in the game changes every 4 hours, so ideally shift time between 4-hour blocks. I wouldn't even mind it going a step further and the game just asking us what time we want to change the clock to. That would literally save me hours, maybe even days, of having to wait for the right moment to record. Number 7. A Zonai Companion. Zelda games have a long history of having a companion character with Link. Breath of the Wild broke away from this obviously, but right out of the gate, Tears of the Kingdom teases us with this concept. Rauru is actively engaging in conversation with Link throughout the Great Sky Island, and I have to admit, I was basically hanging on every word that he gave me. How the constructs and the Zonai operated on the chimings of the bells from the Temple of Time. How he feels ambivalent about the constructs continuing their routine despite the Zonai no longer being around. Little details like that really call out to me. I genuinely thought that Rauru was going to be my companion throughout the game, constantly giving me insight into the various locations I would visit. I loved this idea, and yet, as we all know, at the end of the tutorial he fades away. Later on with the 5th Sage quest, we would learn that Minoru was inside the Pora pad all along, and that her and Zelda planned from the beginning that she would act as a guide for Link. Presumably, this means that she was planning on taking up the role of a companion, perhaps offering the insight that I was hoping for from Rauru, and yet, for some reason, she didn't wake up. It honestly was almost like a slap in the face to be teased not once, but twice. My fix to this problem is to give us exactly that. Give us Rauru or Minoru as a companion in the game. I'm leaning more towards Minoru as that was her intended plan. If they were afraid of the Navi effect that people hate, they could have very easily made the conversations with Minoru optional, just like they did with Fi in Skyward Sword HD. I understand that this would have required a bit of extra work to actually craft dialogue about the various sites throughout the world. I would love to hear Minoru's insights about the various Zonai locations. For example, the Water Temple and the Ancient Water Works. Are they really the source of Hyrule's water? Or what exactly is up with Gloom's approach? There are so many unanswered questions. A little bit of information from Minoru, or even having Rauru speak to Link, or something other than the same regurgitated cutscene from the ancient sages time and time again. That would have gone a long ways towards making this good game the best game. And honestly, I don't think that is too much to ask. Thanks for watching the episode. Given that it's the holidays, I really wanted to do a type of Christmas wish list. Next week, I plan to make good on the promise of the Zelda Depression Part 2 video. While the video does seem like it was being punished by the algorithm for talks of depression, my supporters have convinced me that I should go ahead and do Part 2 anyways. I am, after all, doing this whole YouTube thing out of passion, and the topic of depression and its representation in media is something that is dear to my heart. If you guys like what I do, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. These things take a lot of work to do, and I put one out every week. If you want to help me out with some Christmas cheer, a super thanks to the channel would be great. Even better, consider joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member. You will gain access to my Discord server where we can talk more directly about upcoming projects and so forth. It really does need more members to become a thriving community, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's all I got for you today, guys. Be safe, and may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.